Welcome to STEMSpark at Home. Today's experiment is Bubbles and Fizz, a chemical mystery. All you need for this activity is a cup, 4 small bowls, measuring spoons, vinegar, flour or any gluten-free flour, cornstarch, sugar, and baking soda. Scientists use their senses to make observations. Can you name the 5 senses? Awesome! Seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, and hearing. For this activity, it is safe to use your senses of sight, touch, hearing, and smell. Remember, it is not always safe to use your sense of taste to make observations. I have 2 chemicals that when mixed together will create something new. The first chemical is vinegar. Vinegar is a clear liquid that feels like water and has a tangy or sour smell. The second chemical is a white powder. I know what it is, but I'm going to leave it as a mystery for you. I'm going to start by putting a scoop of the white powder into the bottom of the glass. I added food coloring to the vinegar just so it's easier to see, but it won't affect our experiment. What do you think will happen when I pour the vinegar into the cup? Make a hypothesis. Let's see what happens. What do you see happening? Do you hear any sounds? When the vinegar and the white powder mixed together, they created bubbles and fizz, and pushed their way all the way to the top of the cup. To solve the mystery of the powder, gather your materials and set up an experiment like this. We will be testing 4 powders, which I have labeled A, B, C, and D to help us keep track during our experiment. One of the powders is the one that we used in the experiment at the beginning. I'm going to add blue food coloring to the vinegar so we can see it a little better. For the experiment, I have measured out 1 teaspoon of each powder, and I will be scooping 1 tablespoon of vinegar into each bowl. But before we start, let's make some observations about the powders. What do you notice about them? Are they the same or are they different? Some things I notice are that they are different shades of white. Powder A is a little bit of an off-white, while powders B, C, and D are brighter. The way that the powders are clumped together in the bowl is also different for each one. Powders A and C are in bigger chunks. Powder B is much smoother and only in a few pieces. And powder D is very fine and smoothed out. Powder A feels very soft. It easily breaks apart and leaves a little bit of a residue behind or sticks to my finger. Powder B feels a little crunchy under my finger. But when I move it around in between them, it feels very soft and smooth. It also sticks to my finger. Powder C feels thicker. It doesn't break apart as easily, but it is very soft and sticks as well. Powder D is easiest to push through, is a little bit soft and kind of gritty, and it sticks to my finger too. Now that we have made observations about the powders, let's see what happens when we add vinegar to each one. Let's start with powder A. I'm going to measure out about a tablespoon and pour it into the bowl. Did you see any bubbles and fizz? When I feel it, it feels kind of pasty. The powder has become very sticky, even forming a clump on my finger. So that was a different reaction than what we saw in our experiment at the beginning. Let's try powder B. Powder B also did not bubble or fizz. I see 1 tiny bubble, but not a whole bunch of them like before. Powder V feels very firm now to the touch, almost solid. Let's try powder C. Powder C looks like it's disappearing. The vinegar seems to be sucking it up. And when I feel around, there's definitely a lot less of it than there was when we started. It looks like that powder C is dissolving or mixing in with the liquid. I wonder if it will be powder D. Let's find out. Wow! Powder D made the bubbles and fizz. Which powder do you think was the one we used in our experiment? Right, it was powder D, which is baking soda. The other powders we use today are flour, cornstarch, and confectionery sugar. What this showed us was that each of them had a different chemical reaction with vinegar. Thank you for working hard to solve this chemical mystery. I hope you try this activity at home and make your own observations using your senses. Happy experimenting!